In the spring of 1834, somewhere in the rolling hills of central Virginia, a discovery was made that would forever change how we understand the depths of human evil. 47 children, ages ranging from 6 to 16, were found chained in a basement beneath what appeared to be an ordinary farmhouse. The children bore no resemblance to each other, spoke different languages, and when questioned, could only whisper one name through their tears: Mother Sullivan. The local sheriff's report, buried for over a century in the Henrico County archives, describes scenes so disturbing that 3 of the investigating officers resigned from duty within a week. What makes this case truly haunting isn't just the horror of what was found, but the chilling realization that Constance Sullivan had been operating her twisted enterprise for over 2 decades without detection. The children called her Mother, but the truth behind that title would prove far more sinister than anyone could have imagined. Before we continue with the story of the Sullivan family and their unspeakable secrets, I want to ask you something important. This channel isn't for everyone, only for the bravest souls who dare to confront the darkest chapters of American history. If you've made it this far, you're not like most people. You understand that some truths are too horrifying to ignore, no matter how much they disturb us. So hit that subscribe button and join our community of true mystery seekers. And tell me in the comments, what state are you listening from? Are you brave enough to hear stories like this from your own backyard? The question that haunted investigators then, and continues to perplex historians today, is how such a massive operation could have gone undetected for so long in a close-knit rural community. The Virginia of 1834 was a land caught between 2 worlds. The old plantation system still dominated the social landscape, while whispers of industrial change drifted down from the north. In this environment, the small farming community of Millbrook, a collection of perhaps 50 families spread across the gentle slopes of Henrico County, represented the typical American rural settlement of the era. Most residents farmed tobacco or corn, traded at Henderson's general store, and gathered for social events at the one-room schoolhouse that doubled as a community meeting hall. The Sullivan property sat on the outskirts of this community, a modest 2-story wooden farmhouse surrounded by nearly 200 acres of prime agricultural land. To any traveler passing along the dusty road that connected Millbrook to Richmond, the Sullivan farm appeared utterly unremarkable. The house itself, built in the Federal style popular during the 1810s, featured white-painted clapboard siding and a wraparound porch typical of Virginia architecture. A red barn stood 60 yards behind the house, with a chicken coop and smokehouse completing the typical farmstead layout. What made the Sullivan property unique wasn't visible from the road. Ezra Sullivan, who had purchased the land in 1809 with money inherited from his father's tobacco fortune, had spent considerable effort expanding the house's basement. While most Virginia homes of the period featured simple root cellars, the Sullivan basement extended far beyond the footprint of the house above. Local craftsmen remembered being hired for various excavation projects throughout the 1810s and 1820s, though none had seen the completed work. Ezra paid well and in cash, asking only that the workers focus on their assigned sections rather than the overall project. Constance Sullivan, Ezra's wife, had arrived in Millbrook in 1811 as a bride of 22. Neighbors remembered her as a handsome woman with dark hair and an unusually soft voice. She dressed simply but neatly, attended the Methodist church services when health permitted, and maintained a reputation for charitable works. When approached about contributing to community causes, Constance would inevitably explain that she and Ezra were already caring for several orphaned children from her family back in Pennsylvania. The arrangement, she explained, was temporary, just until suitable permanent homes could be found. This explanation satisfied the community's curiosity about the occasional glimpses of children around the Sullivan property. Mrs. Henderson at the general store would sometimes see a young face peering from the Sullivan wagon when Constance came to town for supplies. The children never spoke, but Constance would explain that they were shy, traumatized by the loss of their parents, and needed time to adjust to their new circumstances. The community, familiar with the tragedy of orphaned children in an era of high mortality rates, accepted these explanations without question. Thomas Henderson, who ran the general store, later recalled that Constance Sullivan was one of his most reliable customers. Every 2 weeks, she would arrive with a detailed list and enough cash to purchase substantial quantities of basic foodstuffs: flour, cornmeal, salt pork, molasses, and other staples. The quantities seemed large for a childless couple, but when Thomas mentioned